everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Real IAI Podcast. I'm joined by my guest host on this episode, Ashley Aucoin. She's the president of the Mississippi Division of the IAI. Ashley, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I want to ask now, we just had Hurricane Helene. Were you affected by that in Mississippi at all?
No, I hate what happened to everyone over there, but we got a taste of fall from the hurricane.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, right. Our Florida division members and all up on the coast there, I'm sure are going through a tough time. So our thoughts and prayers are with all of them, no
hmm
doubt.
Yeah, our
Um,
city is sending out some teams to go help out with
oh, that's great.
all those affected. Yes.
I live in Loveland, Colorado. We're never affected by hurricanes, thankfully. All we have to deal with is wildfires and tornadoes. So piece of cake.
Yeah.
Now, Ashley, you guys have a conference coming up. Your Mississippi Division conference is coming up in April. What can you tell us about what to look forward to there?
Yes. So our conference is going to be held April 14th through the 16th. It's going to be at the University of Southern Mississippi, which is located in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It's considered the hub because it's like 2 hours from New Orleans, an hour from the Gulf Coast, an hour and a half from Jackson. So it's a nice little college town. It's actually our biggest turnout when we have it at Southern Miss. And if you hear me say Southern Miss or USM interchangeably, those are the two names of the school. So if anyone gets confused. But anyway, our topic this year, we're doing a new world of crime. So investigation and migration of crime in the 21st century.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of agencies throughout our country have been affected with more juvenile crimes. So and not just juveniles as like a criminal, but also, as the victim as well. So we're kind of focusing on those topics, but we're also playing in the whole of the new world of crime in terms of new techniques. So we're going to have people coming talking from like the National Center for Missing Children.
Oh, wow.
And then we're going to have people coming from the Mississippi Internet Crime Against Children Task Force. And then we're also going to have the ATF is going to come, our local, we're working with our local agency on where I'm locally on the Gulf Coast. They're going to come in and they're going to talk about Glock switches, the 3D printing of those, ghost guns, everything that's new and surfacing. I know on the Gulf Coast in my area, that has been a big thing we've been dealing with. So we wanted to bring it out to our whole state and anybody else coming out like, hey, if you haven't seen this, this is what they're doing. We're also going to have people come talk about human trafficking, skull games, which is dealing with online predators. I just spoke to someone yesterday that we're getting on board who's going to talk about how AI is affecting fingerprinting.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. And we're also, because we're on a college campus, we're going to have a little breakout section for our students as well, because some of our presenters preferred not to have students because of the topic they're discussing. So during that session, we are going to have students come to learn about like internships, interviews, anything they need to expect going into the field. We're even going to have somebody possibly come and talk about realities of policing. We have one of our board members is one of the professors for the forensic science program at Southern Miss. So she's working with our student committee, which has, so she's on there. We also have another university located in Hattiesburg, William Carey, which is a private university who just began a forensic science program. So one of the professors on that teaches there, who previously worked at Southern Miss, is on there, as well as students that are actively in school. And then we also have alumni who have recently graduated to be that bridge between a person who has graduated and now is in the field. So they're working, that group is working to get that for the students. So we're catering both to our professionals and our students as well.
Sounds like a great lineup, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of the cutting edge problems that we're starting to face in law enforcement and in forensics. So that's exciting.
Yes, definitely. Because my state is very rural, so we have very, very small agencies that don't have crime scene units, and they send everything to the lab. So a lot of them are still learning and catering. Like I've helped out other agencies just on in my area. I've had to go work crime scenes for neighboring cities. So we like to give back and kind of say like, hey, this is what's going on in our not just our state, but in the world.
Yeah. And it's not just open to Mississippi Division members only, right? Anybody can register and attend.
Yep, anyone's able to register and attend. I believe was it last year, but the year before we actually had the IAI president at the time come. We've had people from classes I've gone to sign up. My coworkers who are just members as well. They've had people from Louisiana, Alabama.
Okay.
Granted, I know some agencies, especially since we're so close to Florida, sometimes they don't like to send them away. But the more, the merrier.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
and like I would say, I lived in Hattiesburg for 6 years, and it's a small little college town, but it's a fun little town.
Yeah. Now, if I want to register, where do I go? How do I do that?
You would just go to the mdii.com, and then there's going to be a drop down for the conference, and under there will be the registration. You register online. You don't have to pay at the time of registration. You can pay at the door because we have a difference between member fee and non-member, and you can pay. We do our membership based off the conference, so it starts during our conference timeframe to the next conference. So some people like to just go ahead and pay at the conference so they can pay everything at one time.
So if you're a member, you pay a little less. So probably makes sense to just become a member before you attend the conference to save a little money, right?
Yes. Yeah, so a lot of our people are that do attend are members, but again, we have people that aren't. Like last conference, one of my coworkers that went, she signed up and got a membership while we were there.
Okay. Makes sense. In an earlier conversation, you shared a little bit about your own story as a student at Southern Miss and attending Mississippi Division conferences and how that evolved into a career for you. Can you share that with the audience?
Yes. I actually forgot to mention this before I start my story. We are also co-hosting the conference with the Forensic Science Society with Southern Miss.
Okay.
So the student organization is also a co-host with us. And that's actually how I got my start. And that's how I'm sitting with you today, is through that organization. When I graduated from Southern Miss in 2013 with a bachelor's of forensic science, a minor in anthropology and criminal justice. I got involved in the Forensic Science Society, also referred to as FSS. I believe it was my junior year. I was the public relations coordinator, and then my senior year, I was the president. And at that time, MDII was hosting the conference at Southern Miss. And that year, honestly, it was a stressful situation as a student trying to figure out where I'm going after school and then helping them. But that experience got me to where I am today. I met majority of the board that is currently working with me. I also worked with them as when I was a student as the president. I was helping getting door prizes. I actually helped design a t-shirt that year. Our FSS shirt at the time was our mascot Seymour, which is a golden eagle. And we got him in a little lab coat, the cartoon version of him. And that ended up being our shirt for that conference that year as well. And then we also created, at the time, me and the board created a MDII liaison in the FSS. So any year after that, that's that person that could help with MDII, and they're able to attend meetings and basically help. That way we always have some connection between the two. So it's not just when we're in Hattiesburg. That way there's connection even when we're in the top of the state all the way to the south of the state. There's still some students. But yes, during that time, like I was a very active member. I've been a member ever since. So that was in 2017. That's when I graduated. And after that, I made some connections and I ended up staying for grad school after, but I still had those connections because those individuals would come speak to classes And so I would see them, and then I was about to graduate with my master's, and the professor at the time that was over the forensic science department. Well, I'm sorry, not department. He was over the forensic science FSS, and like he was over like the grad students that taught the labs, because I also did that when I was in graduate school. And he comes up to me and he goes, "I have your dream job for you." And it was for my current position working crime scene for Gulfport Police Department. And next thing I know, he's telling me to stay after work to come talk to whoever's talking to his class, and I'm getting advice. And he's like, "Hey, like, when you go into your interview, do X, Y, and Z, and I'm gonna go talk to them and let them know, like, hey, like, she's a good person. Like, I've worked with her with this conference as a student. She's a hard worker," just from that one experience I had. And then fast forward 2021, that same professor is the president of the MDII, and I became a board member, and I've been active with the organization ever since.
I love that. And that's exactly why the II exists, to mentor people, bring up the next generation. So you went through that, and now you're one of the leaders in the division.
Mhm.
You get to mentor and bring up the next generation. So it's just beautiful to see that, the way the organization is structured, and it's intended to perpetuate that, and looks like it's working in Mississippi. So congratulations.
Yeah, and actually, a lot of our board graduated from Southern Miss, so that's why it's also a good conference, because you're not just going back to see colleagues; you're going back to see people you had class with, you had all-nighters with, you
Right.
went to social events with, football games. So
Mhm. Oh, that's cool.
definitely excited to go back.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about a very special person who's near and dear
Mhm.
to a lot of people in the IAI. I know he made a deep impact on the Mississippi division. Ron Smith served twice as the president of your division. What can you just tell us about the impact that he's had on the Mississippi division and all of you there?
Yes. So I personally have not met Ron. I have spoken to him over the phone one time. And that was a very memorable conversation. And it felt like I was talking to an old friend, even though it's the first time we've ever had a conversation. But I did talk to some of our board members that did get the chance to work with him as MDI board members. So Ron, he's the reason our organization really has blossomed to what it is today, is what I was told by everyone I spoke to. He was our president from 1984 to 1985, and then again 2008 to 2009. He was super supportive. He would host dinners for the conference. He also made sure everybody at Ron Smith and Associates was a member. Not only did Ron serve, but his daughter also served on the board, and I actually got to work with her when I was a student. She was the treasurer at the time, and his daughter-in-law also served. And I was told by our current treasurer that Ron made sure that everybody in Ron Smith and Associate was a member,
Yeah.
and it was important for them to make sure they could attend meetings, and they were very active. And he made sure not only the organization was good, but he made sure the state itself was good, because one of our sergeant of arms who I was speaking to, he was saying like our state wouldn't be the way it was today if it wasn't for Ron. And
Wow.
he told me that not only our state, but he used to work for the same agency I worked with. We never got to work at the same police department, but we have connected through the MDII. And he was like, you wouldn't even be sitting where you're sitting without Ron. He's like,
Wow.
Ron is how that crimes unit existed. And it's such a great turnaround, because not only that, our sergeant of arms, his daughter, she was an internship with us, intern with us. And so now she's a latent print examiner, and she went through Ron Smith Academy. So now like it's just full circle with connections everywhere. And when I became president, she was on the board of where she was going to work. So by next year, we're hoping she'll also be a part. So really, everybody at the MDII, there's some connection to Ron. Even if you did not meet the man, there is some connection between you and Ron Smith.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that. His outreach went so far beyond Mississippi And we have a guest waiting for us in the green room. And I want to bring him in, and he can tell us more about how Ron impacted the international community in forensics. And his name is John Byrd. He's the CEO of Ron Smith and Associates. John, come on in and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Jan.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And we know that Ron Smith and Associates, you're based in Meridian, Mississippi.
That is correct.
And John, what can you just tell us about Ron? You know, the entire forensics community is mourning his loss. The loss was felt and had an impact on people all around the world. He was just a giant in our community, and he did so much to advance not just the field of latent print examination, but he taught great classes in testimony and so far beyond that. What can you just tell us about the impact that he had, all that he did for us?
There's so many areas that Ron has been instrumental in, and you know, it's hard to really nail down what all those were. But I will say this: what most people know about Ron and what people know him for was his contributions through his class of palm prints.
Yeah.
People know the class palm prints. It's still going to this day. And also his classes on courtroom testimony. And he made both of those classes really fun, which made the learning environment fun. But what Ron contributed to the IAI and to the international community more than his classes was just his friendship. His friendship with people. He loved people, and he loved the IAI itself. He just loved connecting with people. And it's great that y'all brought out before that all the connections that people have, whether they're through, you know, a conference or a class or whatever it may be, that is what it's about. It's about connections with people. Ron was very big on people and friending people and just knowing them in general, getting to know them. Ron loved to laugh. He loved to laugh, and he loved a good story. And I'll just share one here that was, you know, I think about all the time when I think of Ron. And that was, we were at a conference, which was not unusual for him, but there was a person that walked up to our booth, and Ron prided himself on knowing everybody's names. And he walked up to this gentleman and he said, "Paul, how are you doing?" And he said, "My name's not Paul." And he said, "That's right, I knew that. Jim, how you doing?" And he said, "My name's not Jim." And he said, I know, your name is Joe." And he says, "Yes." And he said, "So how's things in California?" And he says, "Well, I don't live in California." And he says, "Well, how's things in New York?" And he said, "I don't live in New York." And I said, "Ron, stop." But he knew the person. But with all of the people that he knew and all the conferences that we went through, it's hard to keep up with everybody's name. Sure. But everybody knew Ron. Yeah. And he was that central connection for everybody. But maybe he didn't remember everybody's names, but he knew the person. And that's what was most important. So I would say just friendship and connections was Ron's biggest contribution to the IAI.
Yeah.
But he also contributed his intellect, his classes, the things that he knew he wanted to share, and share that with other people to help them learn, to help them know how to do things the right way, was very near and dear to his heart.
Yeah, John, yes, all you said about Ron, that's basically everything that I was told whenever I was talking to the individuals that are part of the MDII about him. And just that one conversation between me and him, I definitely felt like he was a friend of mine. And I actually got to take the online version of his palm class that you mentioned. And the one thing I always remember him saying is, if you can't figure it out, take a break and have a cup of coffee. And that right there is where I felt like Ron was a good friend, even though I never met him, because coffee is dear to a lot of law enforcement's hearts, and I know Ron was dear to a lot of our hearts. So if you could just talk a little bit about how Ron's loss affected us as like our forensics community.
Well, obviously, it's affected us in a great way because we lost a friend. We lost not only a friend, but we lost a mentor, somebody who we all looked up to, somebody who we looked to emulate, to be like. So as far as our company goes, obviously we're carrying that on. It's to us, it's about people. It's always going to be about people and making those friendships and continuing that on. Are we going to miss Ron? 100%. His loss in the office, everybody didn't get a chance to work with him every day. We did. So not having him in the office is a great loss for us, but it's also just a loss to the community as a whole. And I would say mostly because they have lost a friend and a mentor.
And you talk about his palm print class. He taught that class around the world. And thanks to Ron and his palm print class, we all have different thoughts when we think of snow cones and funnels. He changed the way we think about palm prints. And so many people, when they start their careers, really struggle with palm prints. But after taking his class, palm prints are easy, thanks to Ron. He made a difficult part of our job, a challenging part of our job, really easy. And I love to share this story about Ron. I first met Ron about 20 years ago in Minneapolis. I was taking his palm print class. And like I said, I live in Colorado, so I had to travel for the class. My wife was really ill at the time, and the class ended at noon on Friday, and I didn't have a plane ticket home until Saturday. And Ron knew that my wife was ill, that I was anxious to get home to her. So without talking to me about it, Ron cashed in his own frequent flyer miles and got me on a plane that afternoon. And that small gesture, his kindness, his generosity, his empathy, just defined who he was. He just, like you said, he loved people, and he gave selflessly. He gave without asking. It's just who he was.
And that's important to bring out, Jan, and I appreciate that because most people, again, I think have probably seen a little bit of that. We got to see that every day.
Yeah.
Every day we saw just the generosity that he poured out on people. He would do things like that. I've seen him give up his first class seat to other people to let them be in first class. I've seen him pay for tickets out of his pocket for people when they needed, to get home or things like that. I've often said that he was one of the most generous people I've ever met. And I still believe that.
Yeah.
He just did things for people not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And that's just part of his humanity, his generosity, his friendship. That's just what he did.
Yeah.
And most people, again, probably saw a little bit of that, but they just didn't see it like we did every day. So I'm glad that you experienced that.
And what about there in Meridian? Meridian was his hometown, right? That's where he grew up?
That's correct. Right outside of Meridian in Collinsville is where he grew up.
And what has he done in that community to make an impact over the years?
Oh, wow. He has impacted this community as much as he has impacted the IAI. He's done so many things, been part of fundraisers, written checks, helped build things. He put together a group, Jan, where that was just lawn care, and he paid for it out of his own pocket. And he just got a bunch of guys from the high school, and all they did was go around and take care of people's yards that couldn't do it themselves and couldn't afford to pay someone. So he would send them out to like elderly ladies that didn't have the money to pay for grass cutting service. he would send them out to cut their yard, to weed eat the yard, to trim their bushes. And he would have that going every summer. And just things like that, things where he would, there's times that he would sit out in the parking lot in a chair. He bought a big sign that said drive-through prayer. And he would just want people to, drive through the parking lot if they just had a need, because we're a, Highway 19 in front of the office here is a thoroughfare for people coming from Philadelphia into Meridian. And Philadelphia is not Philadelphia, PA, but Philadelphia, Mississippi. And that is it's a straight shot from Philadelphia into Meridian. So people driving through to the bigger hospitals in Meridian, he just had a sign out there, and he just wanted people to stop just so he could pray with them.
Yeah.
So he just had so many impacts on the community, to his church, to the high school. He actually signed the loan so they could build a field house for the football team.
Wow.
There's so many, there's no way I could go into all that he's done. He's just done so many things in this community that has affected the community overall.
And those are the things that we at the IAI don't get to hear about. So I'm glad that you shared that with us. He was just a giant of a man. And like you said, not just a mentor or a teacher, but he was our friend. He was everybody's friend. And his legacy will carry on with Ron Smith and Associates, and it'll carry on with the thousands and thousands of people that he affected and impacted over his decades of service.
And just Jan, just the stories that people have, continuing to share those is just a continuation of his legacy.
Yeah.
He, and I'll share another story here, that he was never about awards or anything like that. He didn't want recognition for the things that he had done. He just wanted to do them simply because he wanted to help. So at his 50th high school reunion just a couple of years ago, he was given the GOAT award by his high school classmates. And they gave him this big stuffed goat in front of the class of those that were able to attend. And he took the goat, and he had no idea what it meant. And that's just who he was. He had no idea what it meant. We had to tell him when he got back to the office. He's like, they gave me this stuffed goat, and I have no idea what that means.
Greatest of all time, right?
Right. Greatest of all time. And that was by his classmates. So everywhere he went, whether it was high school, whether it was in his community, whether it was at the IAI, he was just a giant of a person everywhere he went.
Yeah. A humble, gentle giant, for sure.
Very, very humble, yes, and very gentle, very giving, very caring person.
You mentioned recognition. I'm sure Ron would be embarrassed to know this now, but the IAI has been giving away the Good of the Association Award for years and years, decades now. We've been awarding that prize. And the board of directors this year decided to change the name of that award. It is now the Ron Smith Good of the Association Award.
And he would be so humbled by that. He really would.
And
I was so glad that both of his sons were there to receive the award. That was really special for them. All these years that Ron had gone to the conferences, neither one of them had really ever been. They had no idea what the conference was about other than forensics. So their first time to go, they were really just in awe of how big of an environment, how nice, the meals, the environment, just to see the networking going on during the week. They were just super impressed by the conference as a whole, and had no idea what they had been missing all these years.
Right.
But to have them there to receive that award when they had no idea was just super special.
Yeah. And I got to meet them and talk to them a little bit. They didn't know what Ron meant to all of us in the forensics community and at the IAI. They had no idea just what a legend and a giant that he was. So it was neat to share stories with them and
to them, he was dad.
Yeah.
you know, and that's just what they knew. He was dad. And they knew what he did. He worked in forensics, but Ron did not carry work home. When he went home, he was just simply dad.
Yeah.
That was it. So that's what they knew of him. So they were really thankful, appreciative, humbled themselves with the award that was named after him at the conference.
Yeah. Well, we lost a great friend, not just a great scientist and teacher and mentor, but he was our friend, and we're going to miss him terribly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to wrap this up. Ashley, you have anything else you want to share with us?
No, I'll just thank you for letting me co-host with you.
Absolutely.
And also thank you. I saw you shared our flyer on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So if anyone wants to know any more about the conference that we're hosting in April, you can visit our website at mdiai.com. We're also on LinkedIn. We have an Instagram, but it's not as active. And we do have a Facebook group that we're really active with. It's the big, long Mississippi division of the International Association of Identification, the big tongue twister, so it won't be hard to forget. But if you want to know any more, you can go in there, and you can actually message us on there. And you can also find my LinkedIn page from our page. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ashley. Good luck with the conference in April.
Thank you.
John, anything you'd like to add before we close?
Just again, to continue to share the stories of Ron, what he meant to people, what he's done. I think will continue to just extend his legacy. And I think there's so many stories out there. I'd love to hear some of them because I'm sure there's thousands that I've never even heard.
Right.
There's just so many stories out there, but special person, special mentor, very special person to the IAI and to his community.
Yeah. And he will never, ever be forgotten. We're grateful for all that he's done for the organization and for the forensics community as a whole.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks for having me, Jan.
Thank you both so much. Our next episode, we'll be talking all things IAI conference. We're going to have the educational program coordinator, Heather Connor, on the episode. If you have any questions about the conference you'd like to ask or any suggestions for the podcast, you can write those into the Real IAI Podcast at theiai.org. If you're a vendor and you'd like to sponsor an episode of the podcast, you can also write to us at the Real IAI Podcast at theiai.org, and we'll share with you how we can help you promote your goods and services. Our producer extraordinaire is Steve Yoder. I'm your host, Jan LeMay. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, everyone, take care of each other. Bye-bye.